look at the family afterwards. The first night, we were talking about the Carolina Day lunch. The first night when I got my big book, I took it home and sat in the hall with the light on. Didn't read the front. I read the stories in the back. Those stories. I love the stories in the back. My drunk cowboy husband was still doing his deal. And I didn't tell him anything for a while, and finally I told him where I was going. And I did exactly what I was told to do. I'm going down to this place that helps me with your drinking. Doesn't have anything to do with you, it just helps me with it. And he started watching me, and I started changing, and he started trying to stop me from going, I assure you. Because he was losing that control that he had over me. And it got bad. Now, I must say this. We were violent people. The minute I walked into Alanon, and until 7 years later, there was no violence. One of the guys said to me, "Why don't you try to keep your mouth shut?" I never promised in my life. I started working these steps. I discovered that there was a God. I discovered through inventories and through these steps, which I also have no time to tell all this. I just want to tell you this of what I've been doing all these years. I did give God an understanding. The most fabulous, marvelous, unbelievable feeling in my life is when I have run smack dab into God. When I have sat and listened, like I have listened all weekend. I am as hungry for what I've heard all this weekend as I've ever been. It's been glorious what I've heard. Just glorious. I mean, impossible things have happened in every one of those speakers' lives, and I believe every word they say. I know them all. And I believe what they say. I hope y'all believe what I'm saying. I'm not sure about it, but I hope you believe what I'm saying. And I got stronger and better, and I started looking at my children, I started looking at the neighborhood, I started looking at people, I started talking to people down at the program, at the club, and he came in after 7 years one night, and he was in a blackout. I knew what that was. I could tell by his face. He started beating me up for the first time in 7 years. I fell out of that bed. I got tangled up in the sheets. My head hit the floor, and when it did, it bounced back as such that I could see my 2 kids standing in the doorway. Now, he had just walked in the door. He had just flipped off on the light, and he had just walked over and started doing this. There was no conversation or nothing. He just came in, started, and he was thinking, I'm sure. And my children, that quick. My daughter told me later, her head never hit the pillow, not really. Not until she heard the house be quiet. Not until she had said, "Mama, please shut up. Mama, please shut up. Don't say anything to him. Mama, please don't say anything to him." Not until she'd done all that. Not until it got quiet and dark again. I didn't know that. I had no idea about that. She was grown before she told me these things. And I saw them. They were screaming, and, "Daddy, please don't hit her anymore. Please don't hit her anymore." And it was that moment of clarity. My kids are hurt. My kids are seeing this. And we got out and up and out. And I left him, and I started divorce procedures. And I told you I'm uneducated. I worked at a drugstore behind the counter. And all of a sudden, help. And it's so true when the student's ready, the teacher appears. It started coming. And my sponsor had gone back to school to become a nurse. And she said, "Why don't you do that?" Really? And next thing I knew, I was enrolled in nursing school. I had no money to go to nursing school. There was a guy in the group that worked for Texas Rehab. He signed up with Texas Rehab. There was a guy who worked at the bank. He got 5 people to sign for so much and gave me money to go to school on. There was a guy named Cotton James. He gave me a recorder. Recorders are brand new things. Take this to school and push this button and record it when you go home. You can study these steps. And somebody gave me an old car. It was amazing. And I was on welfare. And I had to go downtown and get canned goods and stuff. I'd sneak down there so nobody'd see me. Then they changed the system and they gave you these points or something, and you had to take these points to the grocery store. I'd go clear across town so nobody'd see me. Isn't that something? I mean, I'm getting all this help, and I'm ashamed. And I told my sponsor that, and she said, you know, God's got a plan for that. Just watch for it. And that's the one thing I've learned. Just watch for it. See what's going to unfold, so I will. And sure enough, I graduated from nursing school. And let me tell you what had happened from then to the time I got out of nursing school. My class asked me to give a class response. So I'm standing up there talking. And there's the whole, you know, about 100 people I assume from my AA world. And right in the middle, about right here, was my mama and my daddy. And next to them was the next door neighbors that they had invited. And before I forget it, I don't want to forget this. When my dad died, he asked for me to be there. And I nursed my daddy, and I helped him through his last years. When my mother died, when we were at the hospital, those Rebeccas that had asked her not to come back, they were all over that hospital. There's a thing that they have, the Rebeccas. After 30 days, they put this black drape, they call it draping the charter, and they do that for someone who's died. And I was living in California, and I had to go back in a week. And they came, these little old ladies who had still been there with my mom, and some of them who had blackballed my mother. And they said, we have decided to, group conscious, if you will, we're going to drape the charter early so you could be here. And I know my mama saw that. I know she did. I know my daddy saw that. I'm telling you, it was full circle. And you know, the only thing that I did is exactly what y'all told me to do. Exactly. And my mother forgave me. My father forgave me. The Rebeccas forgave me. Everything came back. Just doing what y'all told me to do. The only person who didn't forgive me out of my whole family was my brother Jimmy, my favorite brother, of course. And it was because he had a disease of alcoholism. And about in these years, he took his own life. He ate that gun that Bobby couldn't. My brother did. My brother ate it. If nothing else, if I don't see anything else, the meeting this morning, the chair had her young niece come up and read the open. She had, what was it, 50-something days? What was it? 58 days. This beautiful young little girl, her niece, my nieces. And the reason she got sober is that my daughter, my stepdaughter, 12-stepped her. They 12-stepped her, and she got sober. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm so afraid I'm going to lose something, and I love y'all with the love I can't even bring it up. Anyway, I divorced him. I was nursing and self-supporting through my own contributions. And I went to work, and I went to this nursing care facility, and there was people in welfare there, and they had big red letters for those who were on welfare, and big blue letters for those who weren't. And I said, why is this? And we talked about it, and I said, I want to change the system. And so I did, so that nobody knew who was on welfare and nobody who didn't, so all those people could keep their dignity. And the state inspectors came and saw that, and they set that into place. And I have a letter from the governor, an anti-girl letter, from setting up that system. And I tell you, if I hadn't done what I had done, it didn't take me but a few months, get over myself. That system never would have been put in place. And I think that just, God takes anything. And He puts dignity in anybody and anything here. So I'm out working, and I'm doing good. Of course, this cowboy, he's doing what he needs to do. My daughter is she's 16 or 17. You know, I hear all the time, you cannot say that an alcoholic's an alcoholic. Only they can say they're an alcoholic. Well, I heard somebody say from this very podium, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, chances are it's a duck. And my dog was quacking, and let me tell you. And you mamas will know what I'm talking about. I started hating her. She was sneaking in and out, and she was lying, and she was not doing what I was telling her to do, and she was just running and crazy, and I was just, I was going to stop her. I knew what she was heading for because I've heard women in Alcoholics Anonymous. I know where y'all go. I know the pain you go through. I'm not going to have my daughter go through that pain. Do you understand me? I'm her mother. And this is different. And you just can't stop teenage alcoholics, bottom line. And we just hated, we pulled, and we struggled, and we just hated each other. And finally I had to ask her to leave my home. My son, 11 years old, they called me from school. He was sniffing Pam. Did you cook with Pam? So I went and got him and said, what in the world were you doing that for? And he said to me, Mama, I like the way it makes me feel. Yeah, I did too. So this was going to be different. I was going to put him in a boys' ranch. One of the guys at the group said, let's save this kid. Let's put him in our boys' ranch, and that's what I was going to do. And got in the process of doing that, and his still drunk cowboy daddy found out about it and came kidnapped him. I didn't know where he was for several days, and finally my son called me. He said, I'm with my dad. I'm going to stay with him. And I was just devastated. I was completely as devastated as you can be. After all I'd done for these children. And my son has never left with me from that day to this. My son and I had a strained relationship. And I just adored my son, still do. He went off with his life and stayed with his dad, and he got married. He met this girl. He was throwing up outside this clubhouse. And this girl came over and said, "Can I help you?" They got married, and I think they were married about 8 months or so, and he said he was bored with her and he divorced her. And then he's lived with several women since, and he moved off to Indiana. And I didn't get to see him much of his life. Both my kids are gone, and I'm free and happy and joyous. And I was at a convention, and this man sat down in front of me, and he turned around and said, "Hi, my name's Jim Shaw." Big blue eyes, big deep voice, just a big old guy, lots of diamonds. Guess which one got my attention? And so we started out with that AA romance, and y'all know what's like, nothing's ever happened like this before. We courted for a while, and I was to move out to California with him, and not with him. He was going to rent me an apartment out there because neither one of my sponsors would allow that. And so I was going to go out there, and I quit my job, gave away most of my stuff, and had the rest of the trailer ready to go out there. And one of the guys was going to drive me, and I went off to this convention and told everybody how great AA was, and came back, and he met me at the airport in Lubbock instead of this other guy taking me out there. And he had said, "I have gotten in touch with my feelings. And I cannot go through with this." Gave me a couple $1,000 because Clancy made Clancy's sponsor, and he flew back off to California. And I'm telling you, I was completely just blown away. I was devastated. And I was so angry. I was not mad at Jim. I was not mad at him. Because I still have this